provider. So we have a incredibly large fleet, about 400 trucks, where we're out there maintaining New Zealand's infrastructure. We're sweeping the streets, cleaning the drains, working in the construction industry, doing non-destructive digging and hydro excavation. So us as a business, we produce ourselves a very large volume of wet waste, wet slurries, which is quite difficult to handle and has quite a big burden on cost for our customers.
In the first year of operation, Intergroup recovered over 48,000 tonnes of material, and I'm sure this figure is just only growing since that was published. And what does this mean for the environment and for your customers?
Well, for our customers, it's it isn't just a tick box exercise. It isn't just a nice sustainable tick. It's a real impact to waste minimization. If you think 48,000 tons, if you try to conceptualize the volume of that waste, it's a real significant amount of waste which we've been able to divert from a landfill. And landfills are expensive, and they're rare. And if we can, we shouldn't be putting waste in there that it doesn't need to go there.
So welcome to Talking Tons. My name is Amy Conway, and I'm a Senior Marketing Manager here at CDE. In this latest episode, we're here to talk about turning wet waste into worth. And we're very excited to have with us today CDE customer Intergroup. Intergroup are one of New Zealand's leading industrial and infrastructure service providers with over 45 years experience working with local and central government. The company has a strong focus on sustainability, innovation, and responsible waste management. They are the proud operators of the first wet processing plant of its kind located in their Auckland depot. Designed and engineered by CDE, the facility processes hydro excavation waste, road sweepings, drainage waste, and is repurposing this material to achieve high-quality recovered aggregates. Joining us here today, I'm very excited to introduce Vian Smith, Head of Industrial and Waste at Intergroup. Sitting beside him is Sam Clive, Business Development Manager at Intergroup. And also James Murphy is dialing in, who is the Head of Sales for Asia Pacific at CDE. Okay, so we'll get right into it then. And kind of start from the beginning. So can you tell us a wee bit about, what was the tipping point that pushed Intergroup to invest in a resource recovery facility?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're New Zealand's largest infrastructure and industrial services provider. So we have a incredibly large fleet, about 400 trucks, where we're out there maintaining New Zealand's infrastructure. We're sweeping the streets, cleaning the drains, working in the construction industry, doing non-destructive digging and hydro excavation. So for us as a business, we produce ourselves a very large volume of wet waste, wet slurries, which is quite difficult to handle and has quite a big burden on cost for our customers. And so over the last, especially the last sort of 6 or 7 years, we've seen a huge shift in focus from our customers in terms of priorities around sustainability and, most importantly, reducing waste to landfill. And so for us, as one of the major service providers for them, we saw a huge opportunity for us to be one of the leaders in New Zealand to put the investment in place and put in place a wet processing facility where we can significantly reduce waste to landfill for our customers. And so for us, we see that provides the sustainability outcomes, but also provides good cost savings for our customers too. The New Zealand government's slowly been increasing the waste levies in New Zealand to incentivize private industry to make investment like this. And so this facility for us also helps protect ourselves and our customers over the increases to the waste disposal costs over time. So as time goes by and the waste levies increase, we become more and more favourable facility to use for their waste processing.
It makes sense, I suppose, from both a commercial and circular economy approach, to invest in that. And this type of material has been traditionally seen as a very challenging waste stream to process. So the fact that you have your own specialised facilities, I'm sure makes it a lot easier. to do that. Since the facility opened itself, how has it kind of evolved? How has the business evolved and adapted?
Yeah, it was a bit of a learning curve. It's quite a smart piece of technology. So, adopting this into our business and fine-tuning it has taken 6 to 12 months, and we've made some minor adjustments to that plant as we've gone. So, one of those being improving the turnaround time has been really key. So we recently installed a large disposal pit where we can actually have overflow volumes. So for us, just trying to fine tune it so that we can have really fast turnarounds for our customers. It's a really good experience for them. And then on the back end, it's around, it's been producing a significant volume of recycled product. And I guess that's the new piece, that's the key to it. It's diverting the waste from landfill. So, our facility produces 3 different types of graded aggregate, as well as a large volume of sand, construction sand. So we weren't previously in the market of trying to sell recycled products. So that's been a learning curve for us. So for us, we've just been working primarily just with the customers that are disposing with us. So with large construction companies that are already using our facility, working with them to basically give them the product back. So they dispose their hydro excavation waste with us, and we can return back to them recycled aggregate. So trying to work on that circular economy piece has been interesting.
Yeah, most definitely. It's really closing that loop, and that's what you guys have done and achieved so well. Can you kind of talk us through, Vian, this is maybe more geared towards your day-to-day role, how has that CDE technology changed your operations and allowed for the quicker, safer, faster offloading process and then the material itself?
Yeah, look, before, with growth in volumes and I suppose the different ways of processing this, before it was time-consuming, messy, hard to separate products, hard to keep certain products buffered, stored, or contained, varying volumes on a particular day, weather conditions, playing factors in New Zealand, as you'd know. And the adoption of this and the introduction of this into our business has been nothing but a pleasure, right? So we've been able to in essence take a mixture of all these substances and materials and divert them to, as Sam has mentioned, the different aggregates. What this has done for us, this has enabled us to have various streams to easily get rid of, whether that's selling or repurposing in their own plant, like water, the reduction of or retention of water. So less discharge to tradeways, and we retain that water, reuse this in the process and in some of our trucks. And having less chaos makes you more efficient and a lot more productive, right? So basically took a mess and made it structured and seamless, and it's been quite successful. Like Sam said, it took us a while to adopt it. We had to make some changes, improvements, alterations to our particular scenario. But I think we've nailed that now, and it seems to be working well, where we can deal with up to 1,000 tons per day if we should, which is significant for a small site, whereas before that wouldn't have been the case. It would have just been too chaotic, and you wouldn't be able to do that in I'd say, environmentally compliant way or manner.
And maybe, James, could you talk a little bit about the products that Intergroup are using in that process, the likes of the CDE Hydrotip and the Aquacycle and Agmax?
Yeah, if I could just talk through the process for the Intergroup facility. At the front, the receiving system is our patented Hydrotip, which is a A solid liquid tipping system can take trucks of any size up. It's a safe system for the operators of the trucks to get access for washing out and hosing out the back of the truck, which everybody wants to do before going back to site. But it's a system that can deal with that initial high volume of water that comes off the truck when they first crack open the valves, then to the surge of solids that comes afterwards. So the screen is oversized to be able to give a rinse, and it does a 5 mil separation at the same time. So we separate our sand away at that point. With a system of pumps pumping the sand fraction away with the water, and then conveyors carry the plus 5 mil fraction up into the CDE AgMax. So the AgMax is a scrubbing system using log washer technology, along with a couple of different sizes of screens. It actually scrubs and breaks down clay balls, allowing us to produce high quality aggregates at the back end. But it also uses our patented upward flow system, which injects water into the base of the log washer, carrying out a lot of those lightweights. So a lot of those trashes, essentially, we refer to them as, but that could be anything from leaf litter, plastic in some instances, depending on the density of it, and grasses and stuff like that. So we can separate those away from the aggregates, again, improving the quality of the aggregate fraction. Built into that AgMax 63 at Intergroup is a sand wash plant as well. So the 5 mil fraction is passed through hydrocyclone technology to remove silts and clays, producing a sand that is probably unlikely ever to meet a concrete spec because of the variability of the in-feed material coming, but very useful as bedding sands or pipe bedding, that type of thing. The processed water, Vian mentioned that a big part of it is not just about materials recycling, but water recycling as well. The silts and clays that we remove via the cyclone passes across to the CDE AquaCycle, which is a high-density rake thickener. And we thicken up the silts and clays into a sludge, which is then processed through the centrifuge on site at Intergroup. The recycled water then overflows out of the top of the AquaCycle, ready for us to reuse as processed water. But also, like Vian said, it's used back in some of their trucks as well.
Okay, thanks for that overview. In preparation for this, I'd found a figure online that in the first year of operation, Intergroup recovered over 48,000 tonnes of material. And I'm sure this figure is just only growing since that was published, you know. And what does this mean for the environment and for your customers?
Well, for our customers, it's you know, it isn't just a tick box exercise, you know, it isn't just a nice sustainable tick, it's a real impact to, you know, waste minimization. You know, if you think 48,000 tons, if you try to conceptualize the volume of that waste, it's a real significant amount of waste which we've been able to divert from a landfill. And landfills are expensive, and you know, and they're rare. And if we can, we shouldn't be putting waste in there that it doesn't need to go there. So to be able to divert that from there is a huge win for us, and you know, huge win for our customers. You know, there's been significant large construction projects going on in New Zealand, which have been putting a huge value on sustainability and diversion from landfill, and for them to be able to use our facility to process the hydro excavation waste has been a massive win for them. And then on top of that, it was spoken about before, the production of this recycled product also has created a new opportunity in the market, because you know, with serious volumes that are being produced from landfill, we're also creating significant volumes of recycled product, which again wasn't available in the market before this initiative. So it's allowing companies to start to rethink their process for how they can incorporate recycled product into their day-to-day activities, like whether it's pipe bedding or whether or not it's, you know, retaining drainage, you know, aggregate material. They've got this alternative which is available to them, and you know, and cost effective.
Sam, can I ask a question? Sorry, Amy, for interrupting. Just on the market size then as well. Obviously, this facility that the CDE plant is set up is in Auckland, the largest city in New Zealand. Do you see continued market growth? Like, you operate your own vac trucks. Obviously, currently there's a lot of self-employed vac truck operators out in the country as well, who will more than likely be tipping at your facility.
Yeah.
But do you see continued growth? Is there a big shift in New Zealand, similar to how there has been in Australia, whereby the process of non-destructive digging by vac trucks and pressured water is replacing completely ground engaging tools, so standard or old traditional excavators or backhoe diggers for these processes? It's nearly been eliminated. It's written out of contracts now in Australia at this point. Is it similar in New Zealand?
Yeah, over the last 5-6 years, there's been a massive growth in the use of hydro-excavation, or NDD, for doing excavating in urban environments. So as you said, it's sort of like the risk of utility strikes now is just so high and so costly in terms of repairing those utility strikes, but also delays to program that generally, if they're doing work in urban environments, they just go straight to hydro excavation. So that was part of that fed into our business case when we were doing the planning around whether or not to make the investment in this facility, and it's been exactly that. It's been a huge growth in that space. Whether or not it's going to continue growing, obviously with the economy as it is at the moment, potentially not, but we're already seeing the volumes are there to support this sort of investment, which is good.
Well, it's never going to go a backward step. We're never going to go back to backhoes and that type of application. So it's more just about the infrastructure spend, which will drive the growth.
Yeah. And for us, we didn't just want a hydro excavation waste facility. We put in the extra effort to build a facility that can take more complicated wastes, road sweepings, drainage, catch pit waste, maintenance waste, and that stuff is quite tricky to process. And for us as well, we've seen an increase in the amount of maintenance that the New Zealand government is spending to maintain our infrastructure to ensure that we aren't so heavily impacted by rain events. We're getting more and more rain events, more and more 1 in 100 year events, and so we're seeing an increase in the maintenance, and so this has only really helped those customers as well process that waste.
With that, the New Zealand Infrastructure Commission I found that waste from construction made up between 40 to 50% of all waste sent to landfill. It was calculated that was around 4.4 million tonnes. So obviously you guys are contributing, and Intergroup as a business contributing to improving this. And I think there was a find online, there was maybe 64% reduction in material sent to landfill, so that 64% diversion was there. Do you think there could be anything further done to improve this?
Yes, there's always room for improvement. The 64% might be a bit more as we speak, so we are constantly looking at ways of reducing waste to landfill, because that's a cost. It's space you fill up in a landfill unnecessarily, and we are looking at recycling or reusing or repurposing what we've got, right? So the answer to that is yes, some of it might be costly or is more priority, has a higher priority than others, but definitely. And I think something that we've mastered recently is to get our water clean to a spec that we can actually use this for jetting purposes and not only for a water recycler truck. So you can actually use this in equipment that is a bit more pedantic due to the level of parts per million in the water. That has been a challenge. But if you look at what's going in and what comes out, it's pretty amazing. And so it's something we've done recently, and we'll keep on refining, we'll keep on improving, we'll see where the wins are up until it's near perfect, and if there's new innovation or technology out there, we're always interested. So
I think what the likes of your facility in Auckland is doing, though, you're setting a new benchmark, or you have already set a new benchmark for call it those more pirate operators, those guys that are sort of fleeting the rules which are continually changing as well. And a lot more pressure probably coming on from the EPA or the equivalent of the EPA there. If you sort of set a new benchmark in that sense that others are going to have to follow. It's a responsible course of action for the materials that you're processing, as opposed to just finding that hole in the ground. That's the easy way out. But I think those paddocks, those places that people can dump on farms and stuff, are becoming less and less available over time.
Yeah,
100%.
I think gone are the days of tipping in a pond at the back of a farm. It's I think everyone's generally pretty educated around that point in New Zealand now, and clients are, they require disposal certificates and and reporting, and that's something that we provide alongside that services that guarantee that cradle to grave tracking, so they understand where the waste was produced, what was done to it in terms of minimization, and then provide them those disposal certificates at the end, giving them proof that it was disposed of in a sustainable and compliant manner.
So Intergroup is a business being nationwide, have around 500 employees and over 400 plus specialized trucks. What's next for Intergroup in terms of the business and constantly, the benchmark you referred to, but pushing that forward and the new ideas?
Yeah, probably a second unit in another high density area. Wherever this would be feasible, and time would tell. Auckland certainly has been worth a while, but wherever this would be feasible, the intent to have another system suited for that specific region, market, or area would be keen to have a second plant installed somewhere. Look, we've got many processing facilities across New Zealand, not necessarily another CDE. CDE has been, top tier compared to some of the other processing facilities. So, yeah, that would be something that we definitely consider as a different region.
Yeah, because we've got 5 liquid waste processing facilities across the country, but those are really at the moment just focusing on dewatering, so just trying to remove the water component from the waste to reduce the tonnages, so it's quite simple in its process. So for us, it's around identifying where there's a demand, where there's interest from clients, and then making that investment to upgrade those facilities from just dewatering but through to product extraction and diversion from landfill further, and that's something we'll do over time, but we're constantly exploring.
Yeah, the business case has to stack up to justify the investment as well. There's I've written out in a sense, I suppose, the 3 stages how I would see facilities as their objectives, and like primary objective number 1 for a regional facility is always that solid liquid separation and your landfill reduction. Stage 2 is landfill diversion. Kind of get it to a quality that it can be reused. But then it's actually making sellable products of quality. I think of that as nearly the next objective, which is what you're achieving in Auckland. Is you've got materials that have been produced to a quality that can be reused back in construction, and that's the true circular economy piece.
Yeah.
Both you guys have great experience in this from different perspectives, both on the ground dealing with customers and getting the materials through the door, to overseeing the operational needs and that recovery. So if you had any advice for our audience around the world who might be interested in processing this type of material, what would that advice be?
Yeah, you got to get, anybody with money can buy a plant to process something, but you need somebody to support you during that way. And having CDE and the support that CDE gives us on a monthly, daily basis in some cases, from commissioning or installation, commissioning, right through to day-to-day maintenance operations. I think that's quite key when you make those decisions as to who you partner with. And you can buy a piece of kit, but how do you actually run your equipment and get the subject matter expertise and training, trained personnel is it's really important. So.
Yeah, and these, and the environments are different. So these systems aren't just plug and play. They need to be customized and designed for the specific environment that you work in, the type of soils you're going to be receiving, the type of slurries, the capacity, the consistency. So, working with a supplier like CDE, who had the global experience to provide us that advice, to be able to draw on other customers, other systems that they've designed around the world, and then design us a system here that would work was really key for us. And for us, really, the ability to connect us with some of their other customers around the world, and being able to undertake some site visits to actually see them and feel them and actually see the outcome that they're producing was a really important part, rather than just looking through a brochure and making a big investment call. So that was really, really key.
No, I appreciate the sentiment from that. Like it was something that I was going to add to the conversation, Sam, but you beat me to it, in the sense that it's about doing your own research, but it's about getting out there. Prior to you picking CDE as a partner was to get around to visit CDE sites with CDE, but in doing so, you get opportunities to talk to other owners of CDE equipment, guys that also would speak to the same sentiment as you just have around the support piece, Vian, that you get on the day-to-day operations of the plant. That there's always somebody to pick up the phone to call. They're local to you within time zone, maybe not always based in New Zealand, but there's always somebody to speak to locally. And it's about having spare parts and support. So, a big part of it is that experience piece, and seeing that we've walked the walk already, and we continue to learn and evolve and develop the solution for this challenging waste stream.
And we definitely appreciate, and it's lovely to hear that you say we're the right partner for the job. So thanks for that. We're also equally very proud to have you as a customer. And continue this relationship into the future. So before I kind of go on to wrap up and summarize everything here in the podcast, is there anything else that you feel you'd like to talk about or elaborate a wee bit more on?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point where we're working 24/5, so we've got 5 Monday to Friday shifts around the clock, and we process whatever is generated during the day. At night, which we couldn't process, we've learned that if you feed the machine consistently, you get better results than spiking it, so it's just adapting to these things, growing volumes, different types of products. It's all fun playing a bit in the mud, eh? So,
well, there's nothing easy when every truck that comes in, or every second truck's coming from a different site, and it's completely different material.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. And then you go into heavy leaf season, and suddenly you got road sweepers bringing in, huge volumes of organic product on top of all of the slurries, and dealing with that. So it's quite interesting.
Always something to keep us on our toes.
Yeah.
So just to summarize, what we've went through today, it sounds very much like Intergroup. You're just not managing waste. You're kind of redefining what's possible with New Zealand's circular economy. And you're really at the forefront of that with your innovation and new ways of repurposing that material. With CDE, this partnership kind of shows how technology, sustainability, and that kind of commercial value can align to create real impact and set precedents for future. So with that, that's a wrap of this episode of Talking Tons. A massive, massive thank you to Vian, Sam, and James for your time today and for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and look out for the next one coming soon. Until next time.